everyone to the Co-Creators Convergence Thursday night creator combo call. And tonight we have a very special treat. We are going to have a spectacular presentation by Orla O'Reilly Hazra. And she's brought to us by Tex Albert and Annie Spade, and they will be our hosts tonight. My name is Noelle Marshall, and I'm here with my beloved Bob Warner, and we call ourselves Light Partners. And I guess by default, we are the stewards of the Co-Creators Convergence. But I like how Tex says it. He says we're the curators, and he's one of the curators with us. And so I'm so thankful that we get together every Thursday night and have these wonderful, deep conversations. And without any further ado from me, I'm going to turn it over to Annie Spade. Annie?
Hey, thank you so much, Noelle and Bob, and for convening this and for curating this week by week. This has been a real delight in my life and blessing. Actually, we thought we would start by saying how we met one another and all of that. But before I introduce Orla more specifically and do a little centering, I did want to just felt like tonight with what's going on in the human family in Afghanistan and Haiti and all over the world with the pandemic, that we really wanted to dedicate tonight as a single drop of joy. And that is specifically drawn from something that Tex shared actually on Facebook recently. And it was something that Shirley MacLaine said, that a single drop of joy can transform oceans of negativity. And so I just felt that we needed to really recognize all the suffering that is going on, and to offer what we are doing tonight together as co-creators as a single drop of joy to dispel those oceans. So yeah, actually, the basis for this kind of trio, in some sense, the three of us, myself, Tex Albert, and then primarily Orla O'Reilly Hazra. We all have come together through the Tehard Facebook group, and a little bit of a journey there, but and then specifically Tex and I met on this very offering last October, and then I met Orla through the Deep Time Network, which is something that was started by Jennifer Morgan, and she is one of the officers for the American Tehard Association. So just to kind of set that relational context a bit, and I'm here in Austin, Texas, and Tex is in Quebec, and we want to really highlight Orla in particular, and we'll be each of us speaking later, but Orla is really a world citizen. I don't know if I know anyone who has lived in as many countries as Orla has. Actually, the list is, she grew up in Canada, Ireland, the US, Thailand, Okinawa, and Singapore. Since then, as an adult, she has lived in Ireland, Germany, and Korea. And then more recently in India, she spent 12 years, and her husband is a native of Calcutta. So this is where we have such a perspective from Orla in terms of our human family. And so Orla also has developed her Mythopoetic mythopoetic education as an outgrowth of her experiences in these countries, in particular the Tarumitra work in India and as well as in other places. And she's been working on a book with this theme of mythopoetic education. So we'll be hearing, of course, all about that later. So Orla asked me to open with a poem that I was moved to write about a week ago, out of our situation, if you will. And then I'm going to share from the field, because we have kind of, you know, an overview of a philosophy, if you will, a perspective, and then we have where the rubber hits the road, as Tuck said to me the other night, you know, where we're actually interacting with learners. And in my case, it's with very young children in a Montessori context. So I'll be sharing a bit of that first, which is kind of fun to begin that way, and then move into Orla's vision of mythopoetic education. Enough. And I'm going to share a little picture. I kind of like this picture as an illustration. Let's see, let me do a screen share. Enough. It must be enough. That we trust enough, that time prepares enough love, that provides humanity's banquet. A feast, a song, a warmth we'd long forgotten, though embers enter hidden in every newborn life here. Just here, and just enough. So I've been working in Montessori for almost 4 decades now, and I've been blessed to experience Indigenous traditions. And when we think of Indigenous wisdom, and Orla will be talking about her fourfold wisdom threads that she's identified, and the Indigenous is absolutely one of them, that we recognize that people have been living mythopoetically for hundreds of generations since the dawning of humankind. And so about 10 years ago, I wanted to develop a practice with the children to allow them to begin to reclaim, in some sense, re-experience that those gifts that we shared as the human family for all those generations. And when I say those gifts, it's those gifts of coming together around a fire is one. I'm going to share with you how we have our room set up. So this is where the children gather, and these are children aged 2 to 6. And we really recognize that life habits are internalized. Indeed, Maria Montessori said the young child incarnates their experience, that it becomes a part of who they are. And so we really recognize that what we experience up to age 6 becomes a part of the very fabric of our lives. And so to establish a morning pause, a way of centering at the beginning of each day and being in touch with the inner life, because young children have an inner life. We don't always recognize that. We think they might be incapable of it because they don't have consciousness in the way that we do, but they experience with their whole selves, truly in their bodies and their feelings and their spirit and their mind, as well as their mind. So we gather around this circle every morning before we go into the Montessori room, where the children are independently or individually, but as part of the community, choosing their activities. And one of the children will be playing a Native American drum. I'll show you. So one of the children will be playing the drum, and the drum and the rattle are found in indigenous cultures throughout the world. The drum, of course, being very much about the heartbeat of Mother Earth, the vibration, and then the rattle has a couple of different effects. Vibrationally, it is to draw in the spirit, to awaken the spirit. And then we do a little shake to the ground of, anything that we want to dispel and let go of. And so the children choose which type of rattle that they would like for whoever's serving as our rattler for the day. Children do this to one another. And they really are just so blessed by it is the best way I can describe it. This really is a ritual that we've developed together, that I've just over time seen how the children could participate and serve one another, and they're so naturally reverent. And we also have a sprinkling with water. So you see the large shell there. And so before COVID, the children would dip their fingers in the water, and some of them, would do quite a little splash of themselves with it. So we're bringing in the different elements, the earth through the drum and sitting on the earth with the gravity, the water there, and then of course the candle that we're gathered around the fire. And then we'll be doing some chanting, and I'm going to share that with you. Let's see here. Got someone. Okay. So what I like to share with you is the chant that we do every morning, and it's using vowel sounds. And when we think about language development all over the world, the first sounds of infants are vowel sounds. And so this is a chant that I experienced at Nine Gates Mystery School. And it's a hymn of becoming, and it's coming from the Druidic tradition. So it's from the European indigenous peoples. And we do this chant 13 times, and it involves the three vowels O, A, and U. And it's interesting, I recognized at some point, I've shared this a few times with adults now, and just been so delighted to see how the child in all of us and just that primal wisdom in all of us responds to this practice, that these are effectively the vowels in the hymn Alleluia, which is found all over the world. Alleluia definitely has three of those it has 4 in it, but it's just interesting because that is a universal hymn of praise, Alleluia. And so, but we'll be doing O, A, U. And we do this 13 times. And I'm going to just highlight that to say that, you know, our culture has highlighted 13 as the unlucky number, has it not? Yeah. And 13 is actually encoded both in our planetary cycle, and in our bodies. We have 13 lunar cycles every year, not 12, we have 13 of 26 to 28 days will bring us up pretty well right to 365 days in the solar cycle. So we have 13 lunar cycles. And then we, in our bodies, we have 13 major joints. So we think of our 2 ankles, 2 knees, 2 hips, 2 wrists, 2 elbows, 2 shoulders, and then we have the neck. So this gives us 13, with that 13 being very much encoded in our bodies. And so this is the number of times that we, yes, we should, Noel, I see your note there in the chat. And this is Mayan wisdom that was destroyed. Honestly, it was all recorded on bark paper manuscripts when the friars came over, and they decided that it was, you know, pagan and detrimental to Christianity and what they were wanting to do. And so they made the Mayan peoples to burn these manuscripts, but that is the basis of the Mayan calendar, as they call it, which is really a synchronometer. So without further ado, I'm going to adjust my screen and stand up, and you can actually do this meditation. It's very whole body. I see almost everyone's off camera except for me and Tex, and so but you can do it seated, or you can stand up. I actually have a way that I do it seated with the children, but I'm going to do it in a standing position for you. It'll be the most dramatic that way for you to see. And we'll be doing the 3 vowel sounds. This worked before the sun was out so strongly. Let me pull that down. So it's still there. Okay, I'm going to have light here. Okay, it's good. All right, so we're going to begin at the feet, and we'll just pretty well going up the body. So, oh, ah, you, 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 oh, ah, you. And we end that with a little warm up of the hands, the whole body. And then the children and I go into a 2 to 3 minute silent meditation, and their preference is to lay on the floor, actually. So, yeah, Noelle says she feels around here. The last thing I wanted to share about that is that I do use the Mayan synchronometer, the way that it sequences, and each day it highlights, like today is a fire day. So we highlight one of the 4 elements each day. And the children and I speak about that every day. We're very much aware of the lunar cycle, and the children just delight to be able to look for the moon and to come back and report the next day, especially when it's out in the evening, as it is right now. And then we can even see Venus right now in the evening, as soon as it's just a little bit darker. And so, you know, and very much sharing that the sun is a star, and that it's just the star that we're closest to. It's actually a medium-sized star. And so the children are just very blessed by that, and that we can actually feel the warmth of it. And we talk about on the air day about oxygen and carbon dioxide and how we share it with the plants. And, you know, these are things that as adults we take for granted. At some point it became part of our knowledge, but did anyone really ever celebrate that with us and really give us an opportunity to feast on that? I mean, even with the breathing, you know, with the air, I'll you know, mention about, you know, isn't it something that we breathe all night long? You know, we don't even have to think about it, and we're just breathing all day and all night, sharing air with one another, with the plants and other animals. And so just to, again, ground the children and give them this opportunity to adopt a cosmic view and know their place in the cosmos. I'll last say this was lovely. You know, you never know what children will come out with. And I was speaking about the earth being our home the other day, and a little 3-year-old asked to speak, and he said, well, my house is my home. And I said, well, that is true, but our first home, because our house is made out of the things on the earth. So our house is made out of wood from trees and metal and rocks. And so our first home is the earth. And then we build homes on the earth that we live in, houses. So, you know, these opportunities to just recognize our connection to all of creation are just priceless and precious. Well, without further ado, I'd like to invite Orla now to please share her amazing vision that just has potential for so much healing and joy and impact in our world.
But I just want to thank Noel and Bob for your vision in drawing all of the co-creators across the planet together. And then during World Unity Week, where I was able to see your combined efforts with the other sponsors. And I'm just delighted to be here. I'm just so sorry that I can't, you know, you can't see me reacting to you, because I'm just loving all of this. So the first time I experienced this meditation that Annie does with the students, it immediately struck me about something that religious educator Maria Harris had written in her book, Dance of the Spirit, that the spirit moves from, to, and towards. And I think of as reaching down to the ground through our bodies and then towards. And to me, that's also the learning moment when we're becoming something other than what we knew ourselves to be before, becoming present. Did any of you see or read Richard Rohr's Reflection of the Day? today?
No, most everyone is muted, so they wouldn't be able to respond to you.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, it was really, really good, and I would encourage you to read it. It was fantastic. It was a reflection on Christine Walter's painters, and she's a photographer. And he was saying she was inviting us to consider, when we quote unquote take pictures, instead of taking pictures, that we receive pictures, to enter into that contemplative moment. And so instead of taking a picture or taking a class or taking a break, we would be receiving. So her thing is to reconsider traditional approaches to photography. Instead of taking images, we're welcoming them. And so Annie and other people who are engaging mythopoetic education, we're preparing students and young people to be receivers and to become something, to be aligned with the co-creative forces of the universe. So we'll be going through this mythopoetic education, and then after that we'll be receiving a break. And I think about how I got into all of this. I didn't start off in education. I started off in community recreation. And then after that, I got into addictions counseling. And when I got into addictions counseling, I was wondering why so many people, including myself, were kind of separated from very important aspects, somatic kind of responses to the world. Why were they separated from the body, themselves, one another, and earth? And that the process of recovery had very much to do with coming back to these different somatic sensations. And so then I thought, well, it's really a spiritual issue. So I went back to college in 2001 and to get a master's in spirituality and spiritual direction. And at that time, I was kind of holding quote unquote religious institutions as responsible for not giving us a healthy body image and a healthy understanding of the earth and one another, you know, that there was some kind of miseducation happening. But then I was kind of learning in different ways, and I was entering some of these contemplative practices. And then I thought, so I got the master's, and then I thought, well, I'll just continue on and go on to get a PhD in education. And so during that, so I was really looking at these stories of body, self, planet alienation, and then the awakening that was happening through the story of science in conversation with religion, in conversation with the wisdom of Indigenous peoples, and in conversation with the wisdom of women. So I was looking at that whole pattern. And then just as I was finishing, I moved over to India. So this presentation is really kind of an adaptation of my dissertation, and looking then at how this mythopoetic education is happening. And so my focus really isn't in teaching directly, it's in the philosophy of education, which is it's a very small field. Not that many people are in it or writing about it. Some people might be, Parker Palmer or Elizabeth Ellsworth or Maria Harris. These are people that are looking at what are we doing when we stand either in a classroom or when we're at work, because we're educating all day long. And unfortunately, we think of education as only happening in schools, and then any social ills we saddle the school with sorting it out. But so this hopefully will be kind of a model that people can use to to insist on other ways of schooling and other ways of being community. So with that, with kind of my background and why I'm involved in this and engaged with all of you so delightfully, I'll start off the PowerPoint. Okay, so I'm going to start up with the preservation of collective memory. And collective memory is, I've been thinking a lot about memory in addition, obviously, to education. But we need to, his Nobel laureate, Paz, he was saying that collective memory is crucial if communities are going to survive. And it's the only tablet that has helped us cross time. So we're looking here at collective memory. What's happened here? I just have a little glitch. Okay, so anyway, we have a culture of denial of being a collective. And back from my addiction studies, there's always an elephant in the room. And with addiction, it can be any kind of a behavioral problem and a pattern of consumption. But really, we're starting to look at what is the elephant in the living room when we're looking at all of our issues. So we have a culture of denial of being a collective. And Rabindranath Tagore, I don't know if some of you know him, he's the Nobel laureate poet from India. And he was nominated, he was the first non-Western person to receive a Nobel Prize in literature. And his whole focus was coming back to unity. And he says, in our realization of the truth of existence, we put our emphasis either upon the principle of dualism or upon the principle of unity. So we have dualism is fractured or unity is integral. So that's our paradox. So the ideals of ourselves can be correlated to educational systems. So this is the first time that I'm linking cosmology and education together, because whatever comes, it's a chicken or an egg. The ideal is embodied in how we are together, and how we are together continually reinforces the ideal. So an example would be, let's say in the United States, we have a hyper understanding of being individuals, and we pass that along to the next generation. In other communities, we understand ourselves as being within a web, and we pass that along. So that's what our cosmology is crucial to address. So the way that we think about or understand our place, body, self, our cosmology, determines how we practice life. If we think that we're separate, we can see what's happening now, or if we think that we're interconnected, we'll act in a different way. And indeed, we are acting in different ways. Well-being is a community affair, and the sense of it is inherited. The sense of it is inherited in family, school, work, and recreational experiences. And so when I was in, it was 1969, so I think I was in 9th grade, and we were looking at the amoeba under the microscope, and we were learning the 7 characteristics of living things: feeding, breathing, movement, excretion, growth, reproduction, and sensitivity. And when I was looking at that microscope, there was also a picture on the wall of Earthrise that had just come back from, we'd just taken that picture from the Apollo. And then down the road was a museum, and the moon rocks were there. So all of this was kind of coming together. And I just had this experience with this amoeba, and it was it took me 40 years to figure out what that was, but it was the experience of all is one. But the test questions were, the takeaways that I had to regurgitate on the test question were feeding, breathing, movement, excretion, those 7 characteristics. So over the years, I used to get, I would kind of think, well, why can't I remember my Chinese, or why can't I add something up, or why am I forgetting something? But I can remember these stupid characteristics. And so that experience of unity and that aha moment was really the narrative that I was pointing to in my research. And then why had that sense been suppressed culturally? So we're in a spell of separation. The collective sense is traumatically oppressed. The tragedy of Cartesian dualism, that whole mind-body split. Collective community is nonsense. We've lost that sense. And we have many fairy tales across Earth of people being, expelled or in exile, and there's shape-shifting going on, and then they find their way back. So it's a dynamic that we're susceptible to, and tales can help us come back. And here we have our alienation, our injustices, and our environmental unsustainability. So that's our spell of separation. So then how do we break that spell? How do we come out of that spell? And we have our schooling systems now. Tagore, again, he was critiquing the schooling systems. He established his own school, which was an outdoor school, Shantiniketan, north of Calcutta. And so the tale is in the parrot's training, the parrot, which of course we're supposed to regurgitate back answers, the parrot's training. So the Raja, the king, poked the trainers were training the bird, and eventually it died. And so the king came and poked its body with its finger, only its inner stuffing of book leaves rustled. So we can see that the spirit of the child is killed so often in our current educational institutions of schools. And so we have these values that we have in our current schools: rationality, autonomy, competition, objectivity, analysis, progression, and self-development. And these are fine as long as you're grounded in a fundamental context with other values, but these are the values that we're being driven by now. And of course, we know that what happens, learning facts without a context means that there's nothing to connect to. They just float away. There's no meaning, only facts. This drawing was done by a student of mine in India, and she was asking me how I'd gotten involved in what I was doing in this mythopoetic education. And I told her a little bit about my research coming back to the body and the planet and the spirit and the cosmos. And I was telling her about one of the unpublished dissertations that I'd read for my work. And it was called "Where is My Body When My Mind is in Class?" And so she loved that. Where's my body when my mind is in class? Because our whole focus was coming back, just like Annie did, coming back to the experience of being grounded, and that experience of internal movement of from, to, and towards of learning. And so I asked her to draw me this picture. So here we have the particular aspects of the body hanging over there in the closet. And then these are just kind of talking heads. That was her experience of her education. And it certainly was my experience of education. And there we go. So we need a change. Laudato Si, And a lot of other religious leaders have said, you know, we need a change of heart in how we understand and practice community life. We need an integral understanding of ourselves framed in a common story. So on one side, we have, you know, human focused, we have the age of the Anthropocene, and we know what this age is causing. Dualist separate in a mechanical static universe, empire and kingdom. And this mechanical static universe sets us up not to have those feelings of emergence and coming to and learning. And then, so we need this shift over to the human is centered in a cosmogenesis. So if the cosmos is constantly unfolding, how do we prepare young people to be in tune with that? An integral emerging democracy, a kinship and interrelationship. So Thomas Berry, who was a Passionist priest and has inspired many people, was inspired by Teilhard de Chardin. And Thomas Berry kind of took Teilhard's work and expanded it by including not only just the science religion conversation, but also the wisdoms of women and Indigenous people. So Thomas Berry suggested a fourfold wisdom conversation. I've mentioned it before: the wisdom of science, the wisdom of Indigenous people, the wisdom of women, and the wisdom of religion. And especially the wisdom of women, you know, the same cosmology that is raping women is also raping the earth. So then when we come along with how do we convey this wisdom, that there are kind of languages. You heard Annie, the language that she was using was very much in the therapeutic down here, the therapeutic side. So in cosmology, on the left side, you have understanding, and then you have the practice that comes out of that. So with the academic languages, you know, it's logic and, let's say, interdisciplinary studies. And then in the therapeutic languages, you have art, music, dance, drama, poetry, story, humor. And so it's that combination, the academic with the therapeutic, then with this fourfold wisdom, that you get the healing, you get the metanoia. Then you can go off and use the homiletic language, the language of eros, that we need to do something. So then you have documents like Laudato Si, Fratelli Tutti, the Earth Charter, the sustainability goals. So we have a lot of homiletic language going on now all around the planet that we have to do something. And then we have a lot of programs added to schools that we have to do something, but they're not very effective, we can see, because this understanding on the left side of the screen, this conversation between the fourfold wisdom hasn't happened. And Thomas Berry also said that all human educational institutions, he was looking primarily at school as an educational institution, but I'm looking at family, school, work, and recreation as our educational institutions, must now be judged primarily to the extent which they inhibit, ignore, foster a mutually enhancing human-earth relationship. So here we have the beauty of the mythos languages with art, and you can see the love embrace of the universe that Frida Kahlo was drawing back in 1949. So with that understanding, I was living in Mumbai, and I came to know a Jesuit priest, Prashanto Lalakar, and he was head of the Department of Interreligious Studies. So we decided to offer a course And the rest of the school couldn't care less about the universe story, because they've kind of lost the sense of the original Ignatian pedagogical paradigm that Saint Ignatius came up with. And he developed it as context, okay, which is where we are, experience, reflection, action, which is the experiential component, the discernment component, and then evaluation. But unfortunately, now within Jesuit institutions, context is interpreted as issue. So let's say we have environmental stuff. So then that's the context, and then everybody runs off and decides to engage it with perhaps insufficient results. But really, these issues are experiences of what's happening in our context. These are all experiences, the social injustice and environment, those are the experiences. So how do we reflect and act upon these? So we set about to do the change of heart in a course called Awaken to Cosmic Compassion, Department of Interreligious Studies. And the students actually came up with that name. And so what we did is we introduced them to the universe story. And we also introduced them to another kind of stream of people who are teaching the universe story, which are the big history people. And what they've done, the big history people, is they have broken down the universe story of our 13.8.7, whatever, point something billion years ago. They've broken it down into threshold moments that the universe is creating, and then the right moment, they call it the Goldilocks conditions. It's not to remember the fairy tale of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. The conditions are just right, and then something else happens. So then you have the stars come out, and then the chemical elements are formed within the stars. Then the planets come. So you can see that there's basically 9 billion years for the first 3 stages that happen, of where these are the stages, these are the thresholds that that existence has taken down through time. Then we have biology, and we have Homo sapiens anthropology, agriculture, modern revolution. And right now, all of these subjects are in their academic silos. They're not talking to each other. The research isn't talking to each other. So now we have our collective memory today. So how are we actually doing this? So we're telling the story, we're telling the story of our bodies and ourselves. That's our context. And we're remembering our collective journey story. We're remembering our common human story out of Africa. And there's a wonderful book written by Barbara Holmes. She's African-American. She's a theologian and a lawyer. And she writes about race and the cosmos. And she wonders, why haven't any of our advocacies, why have they been insufficient? And so she also says that we need to kind of put these issues back in context. Where did we come from? How can we begin these healings, recognizing that we're all from the same common story? Race and the Cosmos, Barbara A. Holmes. So Brian Swim would say, Earth was once molten lava and now sings opera. And each continent can say, Earth was once molten lava and now sings opera. I just happened to choose the tabla player because it rhymes, which was for India, the subcontinent of India. And we also, as a closing for our course, we would do a closing ceremony called the Cosmic Walk. And the Cosmic Walk is it's a ritual. You have a walker, and then you have somebody reading off the story. So it's 140 feet of rope, and then there are 32 events, threshold moments that have happened. You can fill in more, you can personalize it to your location or the group that you're having. We could have co-creators conversions. We could have that light at the very end there. So anyway, in the beginning you light the lamp, so that's the Big Bang, and then you just tell the story as you go forth all through. So that's a ritual that we use at the closing of the course. We're bound in a rope, in a ligature. So that it goes back to re ligare, being bound together. So the wisdom of mystics in all religious traditions and indigenous globally conclude that separation is an illusion, that all is one. We have faith in the integrity of creation. And in India, we have this term Vasudeva Kutumbakam. The world is one family. And there is one school over there, one university called Symbiosis, and they've started teaching big history. It's mandatory in their liberal arts school, and their mission statement is Vasudev Kutumbakam. Now it's new for them because they only recently got a professor who teaches big history, Barry Rodriguez. And so they're renewing their mission statement by grounding their students in context. And they recently just had an International Big History Association conference over there. There'll be some information about that in the chat, International Big History Association. So Brian Swim would say the creation story unfolding, to address some people are reluctant to engage the conversation of religion with science. It provides the fundamental context, an arena of meaning for all the peoples of the earth. For the first time in human history, we can agree on the basic story of the galaxies, the stars, the planets, minerals, life forms, and human cultures. This is a threshold moment. This story does not diminish the spiritual traditions of the classical tribal periods. Rather, it provides the proper setting for the teachings of all traditions. It releases the memory, the collective memory that they had carried for so long and have recently lost, but can be reanimated. So with this understanding then of interconnection and interdependence and cosmogenesis, we have a sense of reverence. So we think of Albert Schweitzer and his struggle in the middle of the jungles in Africa, trying to come up with a word that would evoke a response in people to be kind to one another. And for him, he had an aha moment, and it was reverence. And so out of reverence then comes our ability to respond, responsibility, respect, restraint, redistribution, and renewal. So when we have that, then we can pledge allegiance with the Earth Charter and all of the other homiletic languages, the languages of love that we need for agency and action. And this was a statement from one of our students that had taken Awakening to Cosmic Compassion. We are such an amazing and significant part of this universe. evolving together with all the species and forces of nature. I am Mother Earth and Mother Earth is me. Knowing this cosmos has been the first step towards unraveling the purpose of my life. So Shweta, she was about 20. And of course, she had been shaped in all those academic silos where none of the information was being brought together in a common story. In those silos I was showing you, and she was actually a literature student, and she was just absolutely on fire then. She her life had meaning and purpose then. So this is the shift from this kind of black and white dualist thinking and being outside the elephant, the cosmology, and here we have an integral version of being inside the cosmos. Another example, this is again from my experience in India, was with Tarumitra, which means friends of trees. It's a bioreserve in Patna, Bihar, and it's also a UNEP, United Nations environmental program. It's also a UNEP member, and it was founded by Jesuit Robert Athakel, and he and some students were bothered by what was happening around the environment, and the students then took up various causes around the Patna area, and they rode their bicycles from Patna, which is kind of in the middle of India, over to New Delhi, which is kind of northwest. They rode their bicycles to the parliament, and they're just a really amazing institute. And then in 2009, a young woman, Ugratna Shwestava, she gave a presentation to the United Nations. So long before Greta, there were people from other countries addressing children. She was 13 years, she called herself 13 years young. And so Robert anyway teaches the universe story, and people come and stay, and do work, but it's really student run. So the students will come in and they'll have an idea, and Robert and some of the staff there will just tell them, well, you need to talk to the police and get the roads blocked off, or you need to talk to the media. So they kind of get them linked up with the community so that they themselves get used to doing advocacy. It's not the adults doing it and the youth only kind of doing what the staff say, really following their allurement. So once again, doing the cosmic walk, they do that. That's another version of the cosmic walk. And then these are some students who had come in for 3 days, and these are all city students. Sometimes you have local students, sometimes you have coming in from local farms, but these were city students who have long lost that sense of interdependence. And this particular exercise was setting up, let's say, the system, the web of life, and then what happens to one, the string, what happens if something happens to the water, and then another aspect of life is affected. And students, this is the collective body. So here they were planting some organic rice, and then months later, then another group would thrash it and cut it. And of course, during this time, there are all songs being sung, traditional songs evoking the creative force of the ground, the female deity. And then another thing that is done there are different kind of greening the rituals. So normally there's a ritual of Raki, when a sister ties a bracelet around her brother. And it's kind of being extended now that friends do it to one another as well. But now at Tarumitra, the children are tying ribbons also around trees and the cows for a sense of reverence and a sense of responsibility, back to those 6 values again. So that's Tarumitra. That's very much on the ground. So now I'm going to talk to you about the Deep Time Network. And so the Deep Time Network was founded by Jennifer Morgan. And Jennifer Morgan wrote a trilogy of children's books about the universe story. One was called Born with a Bang. So Born with the Bang takes the universe from the Big Bang to when the solar system comes together and Earth is formed. The second book is called From Lava to Life, and that it takes from lava to when life forms. And then there's mammals. And then of course mammals continue, the reptiles, and then you have the meteor that caused the extinction of the dinosaurs. So it ends that book. And then the final book is Mammals Who Morph. So that takes mammals to development, and then humans, and then our state now. And although they're children's books, I would invite you all to buy them and read them for yourself, because they're written from the standpoint of the universe. So for instance, the book is written, My Dearest Earthling. This is From Lava to Life. So this is, it's so good to share with you the next part of my story. The first book would have been the Big Bang to just now. Earth is just coming together. If you haven't heard the first part, you may not know me. I am the universe. I am everything. Really, everything. I am all the gleaming galaxies, the whole Earth, every rock, every flea on every cat. You don't have to look far to me, because I am you too. You have always been part of me. In my first story, I told you how I was born about 13 billion years ago as a tiny speck with a wild and dazzling dream. My dream was so powerful, I exploded and grew bigger and bigger. Over a long time, I turned into zillions of galaxies. At the end of the first part of my story, your planet Earth had just been born. So settle in with your favorite pillow, and I'll tell you how rivers of lava turned into rowdy reptiles and flashy flowers. Imagine a time 5 billion years ago. So now you see it's a very different approach. Now this is for young people, this is for, Annie's students. And you can see how, Annie was working with her young student there, asking him to remember where his house came from. The timber of the wood and the feathers in the pillow. It all comes from Earth. It all comes from the universe. So it's a very, very, very different way of being with young people. And then, of course, if we're working with older people, we have to reconscientize them. So the Deep Time Network, anyway, Jennifer started this in 2010, and it's basically an umbrella for the various lineages across the planet that are teaching the universe story. So you have, I mentioned universe story and the big history people. Then you have the systems theorists with Friedhof Capra and all of those. And then also the Montessori. So the Montessori pedagogy, the Montessori system is being revived now. Her vision is being revived with the telling of the universe story, and Annie is such a prime example of how to do that with young people. And then with older people, then it's not many colleges are doing this, but it needs to happen. And so the Deep Time Network has a course coming up now, in a 9-month course. It starts in September. And so looking at it, there'll be the first part will be kind of the universe story. And then the middle part is applications of what people come to know. And then the third part will be mentorship in various projects. So if people are involved in education, or people are involved in farming or in law or in medicine, how can they take a deep time perspective into their profession and start infiltrating and start making changes in their institutions? So that's coming up, and I think Tex has put the information on in the chat of the website for more information. And I'm always inspired when I see this Arundhati Roy. Our strategy should be not only to confront empire. Remember our empire, our kingdoms that we have, but to lay siege to it, to deprive it of oxygen, to shame it, to mock it with our art, our music, our literature, our stubbornness, our joy, our brilliance, our sheer relentless, and our ability to tell our own stories, stories that are different from the ones we're being brainwashed to believe. So with that, then we have our mythopoetic education, and you might wonder what happened to the Irish story, the children of Lear. They were cast out of their kingdom and turned into swans for 900 years. And there was a condition that was given for their freedom, and it was when they were to hear the freedom bell. And then the other one was that a man from the north would marry a woman from the south. And this particular, if anyone has been to Dublin, this is in the Garden of Remembrance, being back in the garden earth, the Garden of Remembrance. And this statue, you can imagine the children either being cast off as swans, or coming back to human form when they hear the freedom bell, when they come back to a sense of presence, when they come back to a sense of being home. And this is a plaque that's behind the Children of Lear statue in the Garden of Remembrance. And I just think it's so prophetic for our times. We saw a vision. And I think all of us co-creators, we see a vision. So I'm just offering this to you as a memory of this evening. In the darkness of despair, we saw a vision. We lit the light of hope, and it was not extinguished. In the desert of discouragement, we saw a vision. We planted the tree of valor, and it blossomed. In the winter of bondage, we saw a vision. We melted the snow of lethargy, and the river of resurrection flowed from it. We sent our vision a swim like a swan on the river. The vision became a reality. Winter became summer. Bondage became freedom. And this we left to you as your inheritance. O generations of freedom, remember us, the generations of the vision. So with that, I would invite you to receive a break, and we'll come back and have a discussion about any insights, what you received, and any ideas about how we can work together to bring mythopoetic education into our schools.
Thank you, Orla. I'm going to ask everyone to go ahead and turn their video on. We're a little, because we got started late, we're going a little bit long. So if it's all right with everyone, let's just continue, because I know there are questions. Annie in text, is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay, and Orla does not have a video. Her video.
I know, I'm so sorry.
That's okay, it's just, so everyone, we just ask you to turn on your videos. You can unmute yourself. If you want to ask a question, just wave a hand. We're not real formal here. So we invite you to jump in. And Kurt, I think you had some questions that you wanted to, some interaction that you wanted to share. So I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Well, my dear ones, I'm so happy to be here. It's my first time, and what a blessing to have this truth exhibited in such a beautiful way. I did post about the idea of how education has been throughout much of our lives. It's mostly the left brain oriented, and we started off getting to have some movement with the mantras, so to speak, and I did post something about roller coaster fingers to start off classes too. I don't know if you've ever used that. It's a magical way to get even kindergartens. They actually gave the name to it because we get to have psychosomatic spiritual practices. And I saw you moving your hands like this. Now, usually it's just up and down like this. But when you do it in a circular way, like as if you have a ball or a little marble or a big marble inside your hand in the palm of your hand, and you just go around and around like this, it actually helps to be able to get that balancing of your body. It's almost like getting the meridians aligned, or getting the chakras opened up, if you want to talk into more metaphysics. And you can also sway side to side or forward and back. Forward and back is sort of like if you're sitting at the Wailing Wall, or I shouldn't say standing at the Wailing Wall. And we've created something like a peacemaker meditation. And to be able to do the peacemaker meditation at the start of any class. Because when we do this, when we bend forward and we've had our breath go out, if we have our hands, palms facing like as if you're holding a tray, and you go breathing in, peace in everything, everything with peace. Peace in everything, everything with peace. It becomes a psychosomatic spiritual practice. And you can do it in any language, not just in English. It could be Urdu, it could be Hindi or Chinese or what. The power of the language itself is the one that tunes people in because they're used to it. So it resonates with them. Whereas if we use Om Namah Shivaya or Om Mane Padme Hum or whatever, it's foreign to so many people. It may be a cosmic tuning fork, as they say, but we get to be able to experience so much more. And wow, I'm talking so much too, and this is amazing. So I just wanted to be able to offer that and sit down and shut up and listen to how all these other incredible beings have as an idea to bring forth from what we've been able to experience now. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you, Kurt. The four directions as we move around. I was looking at you and I was thinking about, you know, how the little bird inside a bird cage and you go back and forth. Those little, or the dancers on the dashboard, how they kind of go back and forth. Yeah.
It's like, Gail, did you have something? You're unmuted.
Thank you. It's very, very beautiful. I, many years ago, took David Christian's Big History course, before it became a classroom. And I was totally enamored with it in terms of the importance of the story and the thresholds and the phase transitions and the whole unfolding of our reality. And David at that time was very unsure of how to go forward. It was his first foray into, he was a history teacher, and he said, how do I combine all of these different things? So it's quite beautiful to see it in the very young. I mean, I can hardly wait to get born with a bang and pursue and continue that series of books, because Annie and I've talked so much about the very early childhood experience should be one of nature and earth, and not how to get into Harvard or whatever. And that people, begin paying thousands of dollars at the age of when the children are 4 and 5 years old in order to get into a university, rather than knowing how. They don't know how to celebrate a newborn coming into this place called Earth, this place we call home. And so this whole, thank you so much. It's very fulfilling for me as somebody who thinks a lot about how do we embody and embed the learnings that are so important in as this new paradigm emerges. So thank you.
Yeah. And Gail, where are you? Where are you, Gail?
I'm in Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay.
Not in this universe behind me. So,
Okay.
but my background's elementary education, and I just, one more statement. I'm just so thankful that I started my adult life in elementary education with second graders, because everything I learned from them has been what I've done since then. And I can't imagine a more beautiful way to begin becoming an adult.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I have a question. I love the 32, what the rope that you had on the ground.
The cosmic walk?
Yes, cosmic walk.
Yeah, I love that too.
Thank you. That's new to me. One thing that, you mentioned Brian swim a couple times, and, he mentions that this is probably our sixth wave of extinction going on. I don't understand how that fits into the cosmic walk. I know there were, dinosaurs at one point, and there's Atlantis. I'm just a little, maybe, and I've never done the big history, so maybe it's boo on me, but don't understand all the extinctions that Brian Swim talks about. And because you referenced him several times, I thought maybe you could tell me his thesis in 2 sentences.
For Earth was once molten rock, and now
Things opera.
Things opera. Yeah, but no, it's the sense of continuity, and then in the reading the universe story, you realize that there have been cataclysms before, and then out of it then comes something else. And so now what can we learn by knowing that what happened before, that our bodies came out of that, our bodies experienced that, and reemergence can happen. It's a long process of co-creation, and so that would be, where are we now in this process of extinction, you know, the most extinction since the dinosaurs were extinct. So where are we going? So knowing the story, you know, you can realize, well, things have happened before, there has been crisis, but then other things have happened. And the diversity of life is crucial for making it, you know, go forward. So we have all these intelligences and other ways of knowing. How can we work together to tackle our issues? Yeah.
Jenny?
Hi guys. I just want to say thank you so much. That presentation was so amazing, because you're touching on the cosmic dimension down to the seed, and I just hearing that put forward those that big history story, the deep history story, so clearly is really encouraging, because when people enter this space, sometimes it's very difficult to know what point to enter into because it's so big. So, and it's really beautiful to see how you weaved the ritual elements so simply in there with the circles and the points of threshold. So it's very transferable into, you know, any field, or as you mentioned, Annie, you know, it's what's happening at any point in education, be it with our children or in schools or whatever environment you're in. But yeah, really beautiful, and a very clear and amazing presentation. Thank you. Or I don't know how to say your name. Orla? Orla. Sorry. Thank you. Yeah, really rich. You must be amazing. I'd love to hear more, and all the people that you referenced as well. I think I'll just throw this in here in Australia from Australia. My father found ancestral remains, Mungo man and Mungo lady, who are 40,000 years old, and they were ritually buried. So that conversation about collective memory, we are looking at real people 40,000 years ago. Here in Australia, we have a landscape that shows the lifestyles of those people, and it's phenomenal. And so it's really interesting to hear this flow that you've presented so clearly, and how we've come to this place of reflection, that we now have the big story, the collective story. And even, I guess, with the extinctions, we're forced to have to think about things that we probably wouldn't have thought about. So it's another point of doing the whole thing, reconnecting, reflecting, you know, recontextualizing stories. So thank you.
Yeah, well, Jenny, I'd love to hear more about what you're doing too.
I think I'm in a place where I've said to Annie, I'm not doing much right now. I guess my father did find, you know, these ancestral remains, and so I was brought up in an environment where my dad was already in an altered state most of my life. So my journey took me down that track of trying to, I spent the first 3 years I spent around Indigenous communities, and then, you know, I just went on a journey with dream work, ritual work, shamanic, transpersonal. I did then go back to my dad. So he's a scientist, so I went back there and tried to bring. I had an amazing curriculum writer who was also Montessori trained, and we created a curriculum called Mungo Explorer, which integrates earth science and history, Australian history, our Indigenous history here in Australia. But because of the curriculum writer, we've been able to embed, you know, deep listening and the elements and some of those more sensory, not to the extent anywhere near Annie, but it's very difficult. You really, I haven't committed to really rolling it out properly, and you have to be able to train the teachers. You need to be able to engage, you know, these practices of deep listening and teach people how to go there. And otherwise they just default to what they know and their standard way. They'll see a curriculum, you can give them a really rich, deep curriculum, and they'll just pick up wherever they meet that curriculum, which is mostly at the surface. So,
yeah, I'd love to see your curriculum. I'd love to see that. You know, maybe there's a way that, you know, the educators, you know, that we can kind of share the curriculum that we're kind of developing, because it's just so, and Gail, it's so important to be doing this now, and of course, just like you said, it's very hard, because it's such a shift. But young children are, in pockets, they're getting it, but then it needs to be confirmed. Like, let's say I knew it way back then, that things were interconnected, but it wasn't confirmed, and it was just this kind of a ghost. It was haunting me my whole life. But how can we join? How can we put our resources together and support each other too? Yeah.
Yes, thanks, Orla. I've partnered up with an education company here. So the curriculum's sitting in amongst a couple of other digital resources. So I'm always a bit hesitant at the moment because I know it's not being presented the way it should be. But I can send you the body of the actual work. A link.
Gosh.
So
yeah.
I'll put it in the chat. Actually, Annie, I might send an email around to you later, and if you want to, if you can share it, then that would be great, because I'll give you the direction how to get to it. That would be awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Jenny. It's like Gail has another comment. Do we have time, Noelle?
I do.
Yeah.
So I'll go really fast. Annie and I've had conversations before, but it isn't until tonight that I really understood how she made so simple the whole world, what's important, and through very simple exercises and exchanges. And it's just so beautiful. And I'm sure, Jenny, that you're probably done the same thing. And so, Annie's talked about, are we ready for a TV show? Is it a Fred Rogers kind of show, where this gets broadcast more than in a curriculum that you have, Jenny, or the little world that I have, that I create, or that Annie creates? Is it time to do something more? And I sense it is. I really sense that that there's hunger out there right now for people going, how do I respond? How do I help my children? How do I help myself? Engage in this crisis in a way that lets emergence show us the way. And I think, anyway.
Thank you for letting
tonight's conversation. So did I do that too early?
That's all right. No. I thought about bringing it out tonight. So we are looking at a children's program. Yes, and we've got some hands raised here. I don't want to miss that. Olivia, I think, was first.
Well, first of all, Annie, I want to say I love what you're doing with your children, with the rituals. And my background, as I think you know, but other people may not know, is I've been the student of Indigenous elders for a long time and am involved in a peace village. And part of our daily practice of meditation is the vowels that we do when we reach our navel center. And so I sing the vowels every day when I do my meditation. So I loved what you said. I love the synchronicity. As you know, synchronicity rocks. And the other thing I have to say, Orla, you brought tears to my eyes, because you were saying, and Gail, you were saying, I think that it's so important to have these experiences that evoke other educational experiences, that make them come back to us, and particularly the younger ones. Well, when I was a few years, I guess in 2008, I had the privilege of being in a training with Dr. Louise Diamond, who was an incredible peace worker on the planet and is unfortunately no longer with us, and also one of our members of the Peace Village. And she led us through the cosmic walk.
Oh, wow.
And it was one of the most powerful things. We were in Santa Fe in a beautiful home where they brought Israeli and Palestinian young people together every summer to do work, you know, to get to know each other. So the energy was just amazing. And she led us on this cosmic walk, and I'd forgotten about it. And I'm actually writing a book myself of stories from a peace village. And I want to bring her story out, and I had forgotten that. So thank you, Orla. That was one of the most powerful things that I've done.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back and relive it. And I just want to say that I just feel so moved that you're reaching these young children with Indigenous wisdom, with ritual, with loving Mother Earth and loving each other. It's so important. And we have a program that some of our members are developing for young people, because as they get older, often when they get into school, they lose that that early education. You know, how do we keep them in touch with the real immanence of Mother Earth in their education? So it's really very inspiring, all of you. Thank you. And also thank you, Kurt, for those practices. I'm going to bring them into my Feldenkrais and embodied leadership class.
Awesome. Thank you, Olivia.
Contact me anytime at all for anything. I'm here to serve like you. And
Thank you.
wish I could stay on to hear Eli or Cindy share their wealth of wisdom. But like I said, my family's just arrived, and love you and keep up the good work. God bless.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you, Kurt. There's always the recording.
Yes,
Good,
it'll be
good.
on our website, co-creatorsconvergence.com. And there are some more people that want to jump in here, so I'm going to go long. Eli and Cindy by Jenny. And let me see, Jim also, please, if you can stay. He has a program that he says he does in Reno.
Right. We have Eli and Cindy have their hand up, and then Tex is our cue.
So hello, everyone. Just want to begin by saying thank you. That was really beautiful. We both enjoyed that. A few things, many things stood out. One was remembering. We use the exact same terminology as well, to remember as a part of our greater self, Mother Earth, larger.
Yeah.
I was just really, really enjoyed all this. Also work in a very similar area, very interested in education and looking at larger timelines and how we are part of something much larger, you know, helps really fizzle away the story. I'm a self-made man, I do this myself, or not a part of a much bigger picture. I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that. Sort of some of the direction behind those books and looking at a larger timeline. Just also interested in how maybe we could help each other. We come from a foundation called the Universal Foundation for Holistic Design. We do many things, but one area that we look specifically at is showing the interdependent and interconnected nature of all things for educational purposes, but also so that we can create holistic systems. So we restructure societal systems to work in concert with natural ones, all the way from a very basic education in this, which is very similar to looking at how all life load shares, how everything is working together, not just all life, but the systems that create and uphold life.
Awesome.
That's wonderful. Well, you know, I kind of shared what I had done in the college, and then kind of outside at Tarumitra, and then what's happening on the Deep Time Network. So the first thing is really kind of laying down the foundation of that interconnection, and then pointing out to students that, well, let's say the young children, they're kind of little mystics, you know, but the older students have to remember that. And then what we did is we asked them to keep journals as they were going through the course, because they were going against, you know, the stream, and it was very hard then for them to stay focused on this sense, and then supporting one another. So I think supporting one another is really crucial. So it would be great to keep in touch, and we can brainstorm afterwards about how to potentiate, you know, because maybe we can, because let's say some people are fostering the understanding and some people are living it out, let's say in the system, and, you know, trying to do it. So there's two sides of it, and we all need each other. So we'll share emails and stuff, and we can move that forward. That'd be great.
Sounds beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
All right, we'd love to hear from Tex. We had planned for him to share on this topic, his response. So
thank you everyone who made it here this evening. I'm particularly grateful for Bob and Noel, who have been curating the co-creators convergence for several years now. Barbara Mark Sabbath legacy, and you know, it's very special that Orla accepted to present this evening, and with the collaboration of Annie. I feel, without being an expert pedagogue or educator per se, but very much a father and a grandfather, that humankind is at a stage where we thought we were very sophisticated by our consumerism, by our entertainment, which in the end has ended up being very much a lot of distraction, and probably also very much alienation from who we truly are. So as we talk about remembering, I think we truly need to go deep in time and reconnect with who and where we come from. So I see Gail's background this evening reminds very much of what the astronauts experience and call the overview effect. So what I think myself, when I got to understand the overview effect quite a few years ago, it puts things into perspective in the sense of, you know, as an individual, as a person in community on this planet, how we need to relate to one another. And as we take into context the cosmos now, I mean, we are very much cosmozoics in the sense that we are animals in the cosmos. And as we say, you cannot love something that you do not understand. So we really need to remember, and mythopoetic education can help us, because at this stage, we realize that humankind is very much at a loss, be it from the ravages of a small virus, or as we witness empire failing after 20 years in Afghanistan. I mean, all this is very much a shock. I mean, I was with two young grandsons this afternoon, well, the whole day, 8, one is 8, the other one is 6. And we went around several parks, and there was quite a bit of activity. But at some point when I got home back with them, I watched BBC World News and got a very a summary report of how the debacle in Afghanistan went over the 10 days. I mean, it's just incredible, it's pathetic. And now one could be very much in despair, but on the other hand, I think there is hope, because the system that we thought was very much entrenched can still be changed, and which is what Arundhati Roy says. If we listen carefully, we can hear the world that our hearts soulfully know. So more than a change of hearts, we need to really awaken soulfully and reconnect with our cosmic self. So I thank everyone, and there's much hope here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm so delighted. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I look forward to future conversations with everybody here. Thank you so much, Noel. Thank you so much.